but it is some that eventually ended up getting right before this past show we had last week.
That's cool. How does it grow for you? Can you describe it to us?
Well, it's a plant that just makes you just scratch your head in a lot of ways because it grows very strong.
Really?
It came in with 3 leaves less than 21 days ago. And since then, you know, being an import and having a new leaf after 3 weeks, that just kind of shows you
Adorable.
kind of the strength. This is like the original lines of Masterpiece. Okay, so with Masterpiece, it's a seedling I found back in early 2021.
Dear Monstera lovers, welcome to sunny Miami, Florida at the workplace of Mike D'Andrea, a passionate rare plant hunter and esteemed international trader. I consider Mike one of the leading experts on variegated monsteras, a group of stunning plants that's taking the world by storm. I've been lucky enough to get Mike to share some behind-the-scenes story about these incredible plants, and trust me, his answers are as fascinating as they're insightful. As someone who travels the globe to attend rare plant shows, I thought I'd seen it all, but when I visited Mike's nursery, I came across a few monsteras that even I hadn't seen before. We start the episode with Mike's backstory, and then each monstera discussed are conveniently time-stamped in case you want to view them in a different order. Let's begin.
Hi guys, my name is Sean. I'm a houseplant enthusiast from Jakarta, Indonesia. I'm in Miami, Florida, and this is Mike D'Andrea. So you might know him from our Bangkok video, and he is always at the shows in Bangkok. And this is kind of your headquarters or your temporary office.
Yeah.
So Mike is a purveyor of rare plants and he's discovered a lot of interesting mutations in monsteras. But I'm gonna let Mike explain what he does, and we're gonna look at some cool plants shortly.
I actually grew up in New York, and about 30 minutes north of New York City. But you know, I always enjoyed the outdoors and always enjoyed warm weather. So as soon as I had a chance, I selected a college out west in the University of Arizona, a nice warm spot, and I studied landscape architecture. So I got a degree in that, but found surprisingly that landscape architecture is not that much outdoor work. So I was finding myself at a desk, drafting, or on a computer, and there's some interesting parts of that, but when I was asked to go out and source plants at a nursery or go look up a plant to spec a plant for a job, that had my interest more than being in the office and, you know, working on drafting or, you know, technical construction drawings. But right after college, I got offered a job to teach out on the islands of Micronesia, and that was a big surprise to me, and I couldn't turn it down. So I took this job on the island of Saipan, which is about, from here, if you were to fly to Honolulu, you'd still have to fly another 7 hours, and it's really closer to Asia. It's a U.S. Commonwealth that's owned by the U.S., but it's a small island, a small group of islands. So while over there, I was teaching, but I ran into a landscape architect who was doing resort work and jobs in the island for the big tourism industry from Japan and other Asian islands. So he needed help. He asked me to help him. We had a nursery, and that's how I kind of got introduced into nursery work. We operated a nursery. That was back in 1996. So doing that, I got to get into sourcing plants more and did some trips to the Philippines when looking and collecting palms and different plants, and found out that it was a little difficult getting imports into that small island. So knowing if I wanted to really do that, I had to really make a move full time. You know, you look back at the U.S., where can I grow tropical plants? But Florida was the obvious closest match. Started doing landscape design and architecture about an hour north of here. But still, the plant part of it was more interesting to me. And when I had the chance, just broke off completely and went full 100% into just plant sales, plant growing, and plant collecting. Probably about 2007 or 8. during that time, we were asked to source plants down in this area. This area is like a mecca. If you look around, there's acres and acres of nursery after nursery. So we would get a job and there'd be a design and you need to find plants. You'd come down here to source them. And Silver Chrome was one of the places that I stopped at. And that was probably 2007, met Bill. And I think I've been coming down here 2 to 3 times a week since that year, ever since then.
It's almost like a green leaf. You can see a bit of variegation.
Yeah.
But look at this. This is freaking amazing. So what is this, Mike?
Yeah, so that's actually one of the most famous sports in the U.S. It's called the Shamrock Shake. It's a plant that was discovered here in Miami. It was a plant that I found when I was walking through a crop of what I call cutbacks. So a crop had grown out at a nursery and it got too big for the 10-inch pot. And they will occasionally, instead of moving them into 14-inch pots, they will cut them back to get them fuller and sellable at a 10-inch size. So in one of those pots, out of one of the stems was a brightly variegated shoot. And then from that, I separated it and it had this unique coloration of the green and the green. And in the United States, I'm not sure if you're familiar, but McDonald's runs this promotion every March
Sure.
of the Shamrock Shake.
Yeah.
And the colors of the new leaves reminded me of that color that comes out when they have that. It's a yearly special they do right around St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's got a unique color where it's the green and the green flecking. And that was back in around 2020, back in the beginning of the real boom, COVID era boom of Monstera sport, hunting and collecting. And I got a lot of requests for it. And infamously, one night, actually 3 years ago, it was stolen from my house on the night of the Aeroid show and disappeared. So it's kind of got a real story to it because luckily I had sold one to a friend customer of mine, Daniel Anderson, and only one other person.
Yeah.
And that person isn't really active in plants.
Yeah.
So Daniel was nice enough to actually give me back a cutting.
That's awesome.
Keep it alive for me. And then he's got some, and he's been growing some for a while. So it's kind of got this backstory and kind of like a following for the U.S. customers. Because the pattern is something that I haven't come across. I've come across a lot of seedlings. When you find sports, you'll find the Oreos, you'll find the Albos, you'll find the Mints.
Yeah.
But I haven't come across the same mutation when I found them in the field.
Yeah. Now, question. So did they ever find out who did it? Because I mean, there's only so many in the world. Or do they even know what it was when they stole it?
I'm not sure. You know, it's one of those things. During the COVID era, there was a lot of plant theft down here in South Florida.
Oh.
It wasn't the only item stolen that night.
I see.
So there's suspicion on who did it. We'll just leave it at that.
Sure.
And the end of the day, it all worked out. You know, I changed the way I operate at my home-based nursery, and even down here at Silver Chrome, we've increased security, and we don't have that much trouble as we used to with theft like we did back in that COVID era.
Sure.
Yeah.
And this is putting out 2 vines, not 1.
Yep.
So that's very exciting. And sorry, you're rooting this in perlite.
Yes. For me, there's 2 different phases of growing Monstera. There's rooting them and there's growing them. So when I get in all the imports, the first thing I do is make sure they're rooted. Before I try to get them big, you have to make sure that they're rooted. And to root them from being imported, they don't need a lot of moisture. They need a lot of air in the roots. And they need a lot of sunlight or filtered light. So for the first 2 to 3 weeks minimum, I'll grow them in pure perlite, let the new roots establish. And then when you want to get them big, you can then start mixing in maybe a 50-50 mix of perlite and peat moss or a pro mix or whatever it is you grow your aeroids in.
Hi. All right. We're good to go.
All right, so I think we were talking about it a little bit, but Yeah, the interesting thing to me, not only that it's just got this different color, but that the origin, from talking to a couple of people and confirming it, was that the original electrolyte was found in a shipment from Mexico of stem cuttings from origin towns in Mexico, and it was named just last year, 2023. But at the time, it was not a TC mutation. It actually came from field-grown or maybe wild-collected stem cuttings. It's just Mexican as the origin, which kind of makes you think, is this possibly the same scenario where the original Thai constellation was discovered? Because if something like this, with this pattern and color, was discovered in a stem in the wild, then it's also not too hard to imagine that possibly the first Thai constellation was found the same way. The light line Monstera is a fairly new one. I don't think it's been more than a year since the first ones have come over here to the US. And I don't remember seeing them a year ago over in Thailand. The interesting thing about this is it's an intermediate form, and the shape is believed to finish like a common Brazil. Oh. So it's not a large form. It's more closer to this right here, which is an intermediate form where it's not a giant, but the stems have some spacing in the nodes. It's very popular because it, just like this Shamrock shake, it has this light green color. And from growing it, it doesn't burn. It doesn't show a lot of burning a lot of the Oreas get. So unique color, mid-form, great grower, great color, and you get a combination of things. When it finishes off, you get some real nice green and
Is that
light
the
green.
same plant?
Yes.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Oh, I would not have known. Interesting. Yeah, that is beautiful.
So they split and are very fast growers.
So the fenestration just goes really, really deep, almost like the center.
Yep.
Interesting.
So it makes it more similar to a plant like this, where this one doesn't get the perforations till a very late age.
Yeah, what is this one?
This is the original mint Monstera. The plant that now for the US is called the jungle mint or the berry mint.
Okay.
It's another intermediate form one.
Sure.
It doesn't get giant leaves, but it does get large. The white lava, here's white lava at two different stages. So you have a large top cutting.
Cool.
And you have a small, just established top cutting.
Yeah.
This came from the base of one plant. So from the base node, one plant regrew this plant. And this is more a recent top cutting where the leaves are starting to get large and it's starting to get some size to them. Still has that central variegation.
Sure. Now, yesterday I was interviewing Jocelyn from Rare Plant Fairy. She said that if you give it more light, the variegation on the new leaves are going to be more spread out. But if you lower light, the variegation is going to stay towards the middle. I don't know how you feel about it.
Yeah, I'm sure it's fairly new plant, so I'm sure people are starting to observe things about it and what growing conditions affect different parts of it.
Yeah.
I know it to be fast growing and small form. So just like a Borsigiana, or what people know as Borsigiana or the albos, they grow fairly quickly.
Are they stable?
They're stable for the most part. I have had some go from this bright white to almost a yellow.
Oh,
and actually they cut back true. So when you cut them, they do return to that central white variegation.
Yeah, which I have a theory on. Like normally when you would follow the variegation on the stem and you would find that it has to pass through the growing eye. But in this case, how does it work? Because the variegation's in the center of the leaf.
Yeah.
So is it possible that the variegation gene is like deep inside the main stem?
It's possible. It acts differently than most variegated plants. I mean, I do see some stem striping.
I see the striping, but the fact that it's always
Right
in the center, and
yeah.
honestly, I've run into a few of these and they all are variegated. We don't see many reversion.
Right.
So it's made me guess that it might be in the center, you know, of the stem.
Right.
But I don't know. And do you know where it's from? What year it came out, or anything that you know at all?
White lava. I remember getting one maybe at least, I would say it's close to 2 years being in distribution. How far before that someone had found one, I'm not sure. But I remember the first couple were available at the King Show in Bangkok about December of 2022.
I see.
That I remember. And then they could have been floating around before then.
Yeah.
But they were in the market at that time.
Sure. So if someone has the origin story, do let us know down below. I guess growers are growing this out, but they're still expensive. But you know, if you want one, most growers should have, most competent growers should already have some in stock.
Oh yeah.
Sure.
With this plant, what you have is Monstera Contorta, and what we refer to as the NSE line, because it's a plant that's been traced back to the 90s as far as lineage. Originally from California, and there was an online guy, very similar to, you know, Instagram back then. He had internet access and was putting stuff out on the internet and posted some. And a South Florida collector, Stephen Lee Ackerney, contacted him, and I think eventually was able to talk him into a trade, or eventually talked him into selling it. Stephen's close friends with Enid, she eventually started getting some and selling some on eBay and her website. And to me, it's one of the first in the US, one of the first variegated sports that started being traded.
Is it super rare? How many do you think there are?
They're out there. It's just that the popularity of them switched to other ones. Like she had been selling them and growing them back to the early 2010, 11, 12. Then other plants came on the scene like the white monster. She never lost stock, but the amount of them circulating wasn't that many.
Okay.
A couple of people have them. She still has them. And you know, it's just a plant that in kind of going back, to me kind of says a lot, because this is the first kind of collected Monstera sport in the US. And very similar, at least at this stage, to the white lava we just looked at, except that this is a large form.
Okay. So they do get big.
Yeah, these can get big leaves.
Yeah. But also the white lava is concentrated in the middle, but here you see it does spread out a little bit.
The petioles, it's like it's got a ribbed feel to the petioles that most Monstera don't.
Maybe as a large form, does it grow a bit slower, perhaps?
Not that much slower.
Okay.
A little bit.
But it's weird that we're not seeing, I guess not, it's just awareness.
It's awareness. I was doing a speech for the show at the IAS, and to me this was a key part of the speech, because to really tell like the back history on sport collecting, this was like the first non-tie constellation that started being traded, and it goes back to the 90s. So the lineage is still here.
Yeah.
This plant's lineage is traceable back to 1995. Then many more have come after that, but it kind of like starts to paint the picture of the origins of some of them and where they originated, how they were traded, their sources, and where they maybe still be today.
This plant is the Monstera Tricolor Tres Leches. Mike mentioned that this is slower to show the third color, which is the yellow, and next up, he's showing us another tricolor contender.
The names can be helpful. I know some people react to them, and you can always, as I was saying the other day, you can always deconstruct the names if you don't like them or you don't find them useful. But they do help you, because this line acts differently than the line we just looked at. It comes out brighter and quicker and finishes in a brighter color. And it comes from a nursery of a friend of mine, and he calls it the Simba line. And if you're getting a plant from that line, you know what to expect. Although they're all tricolors, they don't all act the same. Names can help you understand what to expect, what you're buying, origin, where to get more, and they're not meant to confuse. So that's just something to help you kind of understand origin and character. This is comes from Super Nursery in Thailand. It was discovered in their TC crop. It's one of the brightest ones they have ever found through their TC production of Thai constellation. I would say there's probably a lot of them around, as far as in collections or with collectors over there in Thailand and throughout Asia, because it is a very high colored plant. It propagates well, and they're able to top cut, sell, reproduce, produce more. So you'll find a lot of these because the color is really heavily going through the stem. And so they're able to take a 3-leaf top cutting, sell it, and then another one forms. So it is one that has been produced and propagated and sold probably a number of times by now.
Okay, but it was discovered, do you know roughly, approximately the year?
Right before the Lana show. And
that's right after COVID. I remember we having to swap to get into Lana.
And this side is Bulbasaur from China. And this side is the Vietciosa from Vietnam.
I see.
So, obvious similarities in pattern and color. In their own presentation or discussion, they I think said that this comes from a TC mutation. The story on this one I think is less known. I'm not sure of it completely. I would say that there's definite similarities. It does seem that this one is a little brighter, but we're talking about just 2 plants.
Yeah.
So I think time will really tell on if the difference is really noticeable or how different the 2 grow out.
Sure.
And which one is this, brighter or, how it is.
And they might grow at different rates
Right.
and all that stuff.
This might be an older plant, top cutting. The leaves may have been
Oh yeah, possibly.
exposed longer. But it's an interesting thing. And
It is beautiful.
like with a lot of these things, time will tell. Time will tell the story of does this one act the same as this one? And so it's to be determined, right?
That is very exciting, and it's really bringing a lot of interest back to the variegated monsteras. The only problem is that I get a lot of comments on my videos. They just hope that things will become affordable enough. Because right now I think a lot of growers are buying them up at a ridiculous price, and they're just not enough for everyone yet. But early adopters, you can absolutely find one. It's just gonna cost a lot more.
And for production of Monstera, in an ideal setting, if you have a healthy Monstera growing, you can only take a 3-leaf top every 2 to 3 months if everything is really going.
Yeah.
So it just takes time. It takes time to produce them.
Yeah.
And if there's a demand for one that's just been discovered, well, it's gonna take a while.
Yeah.
Unless it is successfully pulled off in a TC setting.
Yeah, and there's such a voracious demand for these plants that I don't think supply can keep up just yet for the next few years. So be patient for you guys. People are growing them out.
So this is a newer plant that's been out and about. I remember I bought a couple in Thailand maybe 18 months ago from a nursery, and Monsteras weren't really trending. He had a couple, and I kept asking him, is there a name? Where'd it come from? No name, no name. You can make. So, don't ask me too many times. I'll come up with a name. But we call it Flamicito in the United States. It may have another name overseas, just because it does have a flame-like look to it, and it's kind of small.
Okay.
So the leaves are really ornate. They get this twisted,
it's very twisty for sure.
Active-looking, dancing-looking growth to them, and it has this variegated pattern that comes out bright, and then fades to a green on green. So this is something that's becoming really popular in the U.S. right now.
Yeah.
And then talking to Asia, they had it originally, but now they're going back looking for it because there's a renewed interest in Monstera in general.
Yeah.
So all the mutations, any of them, shape, color, green on green, green sports, they're all becoming popular right now.
Yeah. So this is actually still very rare. Do you know when you got it? This year, last year?
I think I got the first one about probably about 18 months ago.
Okay.
and it took a while. It's a very small plant. They seem like they're compact plants in general.
Yeah.
There's 8 or 9 leaves on this, and it's this tall.
Okay.
So it kind of shows it's more of a compact one.
Sure.
And I've only sold a couple in the U.S.
Okay.
But similar plants I'm starting to see in Thai groups.
Okay.
So it's probably a plant that originates from either Indonesia or early Thai collections.
So this is the base, with the base cutting.
Well, yeah, base cutting regrow.
Has it sprouted any new leaves yet?
Well, this is the old stem is, so this 3 leaves is a new growth.
Okay. Oh, interesting.
This is the old leaf here.
Yeah, the original leaf. That's cute. So when you bought it, it was like super tiny, like
Yeah, just like
those
that.
little leaves.
But I knew from Monsteras, if it was showing
That's
that,
already something.
that's so different. So I said, yeah, let me get that. Famous one from Sweden.
Yeah.
There was one Monstera green, no variegation, discovered in a Swedish garden center. The story is pretty well documented on Instagram. Grows with this twisted habit, and you can feel from the leaves it's very thick.
Yeah, it's almost not like a Monstera. It's strange.
And as it gets larger, it gets even more intricate. The leaves will split like almost like the Medusa look, but in every direction.
Okay.
So very unpredictable, very wild looking. But it's a very thick leaf, and it's become really popular both here in the US and in Asia. And the original discoverer of the plant has been pretty selective, or just has been careful, I think, on selling it to just anyone. I think she does want the story to get out on its origin and get ahead of that as far as letting people know about it. But it hasn't shown up too much in the United States. It's still a very rare plant, and it's starting to be really in demand. Many people at this last weekend's show were asking for cuttings. You have Unniiae. In Asia, it's even bigger. They have sourced some from the origin, and I think people who have it already over there have been trading some, but it's one that's really, you'll probably be hearing a lot about in the upcoming months. This is like the original lines of Masterpiece. Okay, so with Masterpiece, it's a seedling I found back in early 2021. So when you see enough of these seedling mutations, a lot of them repeat.
Okay.
And so you basically feel like you've seen most of the patterns when you find them. You find the elbow, you find the aurea, you find the green on green. But this one right off the bat had a look almost similar to right off the bat, which is very unique for a small seedling. So I set it aside and started documenting it. And it's grown into this plant, which is the Masterpiece. And originally I'd called it that because the original seedling was almost 3-dimensional. It had like the oil painting feel to it. And just felt like it was going to become something classic. And so from the beginning, I just called it that.
The Masterpiece. Now, question. In my episode, I did mention it in the adult form seemed to be very
wavy.
Wavy, is that true? Because I don't see that here.
Right, it's a lot of things happen. This has more of a regular leaf shape than the ocean mint. When it's young, when you propagate them, you have a large root system.
Yeah.
And when you cut them, the root system is really strong and sometimes pushes the plant quickly, and the leaves don't look like typical leaves because the water is passing through them and the root system's pushing all that up.
Yeah.
And it's just like water spreading on a canvas, and it just spreads out in a unique way. So as the plant gets older and the water intake is more regular, the leaf shape will harden off in a more regular way.
Okay.
But initially, yeah, you'll see a lot of like this is a fairly new cutting, so this leaf shape is not very typical.
Yeah.
It's kind of almost boxy, but eventually, as you can see on the older leaves, they start getting more regular.
Sure. But some people do like that wriggly, all over the place look. But yeah, I guess this is one very beautiful example of what it is. Awesome.
Yeah, and it does have a lot of twists in it and mutations, but it does eventually give you some large round leaves.
Yeah.
I would say still with some sort of contortion in them, but less than some others.
Yeah. Okay. And year discovered approximately?
2021. I was gonna say, I do know that I have been asked to document the origin because there are a couple of plants in Thailand being sold as a masterpiece. And one of the first people I've sold it to wanted me to clarify where I got mine from because there's a little bit of a blur in two different masterpieces that are over there right now. So they are in the marketplace calling one Indonesian masterpiece, and the Thai person who I sold to has said, he asked me to trace back all the sales of plants I've sent to Thailand, and he's calling anything in that line the MC masterpiece, which refers to, I guess, initials for my name. And that way, for people who are collecting over there, they know that the MC masterpiece originates back in the United States.
Okay.
Because there is an overlap in generality in look.
There's another variety from Indonesia.
Yeah.
I did not know.
So they wanted to clarify that because they're noticing a difference, but the names are lumped together.
Yeah, but is the Indonesian ones named masterpiece as well?
Well, at this point, they're calling it the Indo masterpiece. But at one point during about 3 or 4 months ago, all of them were being called the same thing. So my customer who has bought the most and has a good supply of them asked me just to clarify it because there was some thinking that the plants all originated from Indonesia, but we clarified that. So they have now the two lines in the marketplace, Indonesian masterpiece and MC masterpiece.
Is this tricolor as well?
It actually does finish in a tricolor. It's a U.S. sport that we found, and it's known in the U.S. as Bubbly because of the champagne color.
Ah, okay.
Monstera Bubbly. Very unique because it does finish in that 3-color.
Yeah, cool.
Kind of like, and just like that champagne color in the leaf. But something that's fairly rare, fairly new. And I think I have not sold one to Asia yet. So it's primarily a US one. So Silver Sand is another one which originates back, for me at least, to that Lana show.
Okay.
That show which was like really the start of this whole plant show, international trade that happened. The first one happened in Chiang Mai. But I bought it from a Thai collector over there, and it has this unique color and pattern. I would say that this one is mid-colored. There's been some really high-colored ones, and I would have the high-colored one here, but it was actually purchased and sold back to Thailand, so it's getting ready to be shipped over.
Interesting. Why is it called the Silver Sands, you know?
It's a name I didn't give it. It was a Thai name.
Okay.
So the Thai name for it was Silver Sands from when I purchased it back at the Lana show.
Look at this.
See how this has these little things.
It's so penetrated. And normally, I don't know, people sometimes like want to help like peel this off. This is so funny. It's like one of those factory-made products that you kind of make. I love those. But what is the name of this?
There was no name on this plant in particular. We got it from a collector. He has named some. This one in particular, he hadn't named.
All right.
So we haven't named it anything.
But you're growing this out, trying to propagate it.
Right.
And of course, when you buy these, the small, you cannot tell the shape from the small.
Right. Yeah.
So you gotta find a reputable seller for this. It's just beautiful.
So this is the large form.
So Yakuza, how is it different from the regular elbow?
So
There.
this is not a U.S. plant. From everything I know, this plant originates from Indonesia, and it was named Yakuza. But the main thing is it looks, in color and pattern, it looks like the small form, with like an elbow.
Yeah.
And some of the rarest Monstera are the whites that don't turn mint. This is one of them. It never will mint.
Okay.
Where a lot of them, once they get to size, they'll start minting out.
Yeah, this is solid. Like the Brazilian mint that we know, it turns mint.
Yeah.
So this is the only difference. It doesn't mint up when it gets,
Right.
and it does size up.
Yes, and it's a large form. So as you see, like, it gets progressively larger leaves, leaf to leaf.
I see.
And it doesn't need to train. It's kind of, it's not climbing a pole or anything like that.
Sure. Interesting. It's funny that I'm seeing Indonesian plants in Miami and I'm not aware of it.
Yeah, it's actually something that's up on the registry to be approved.
Yeah.
I don't know, a lot of the Monsteras on the registry are in the pending status.
Yeah.
So this is one of them. I think Masterpiece is up there. And I think they're reworking that registry system.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people want it to get done so that it is a little bit more official and people don't have to explain their names, or can show that it's, yes, it's proven, it's registered, we have propagated it.
Yeah.
So that is one that you'll find if you go on the registry and look up Monstera.
Yeah.
It'll be in pending status. Variegated Burle Marx Flame. To my knowledge, I mean, there may be some more out there. This is one of the first to show it in all leaves and with bright color. This plant origin actually comes from a U.S. Collector and grower, I think in the New York City area, who bought some green tissue culture bottles of regular Burle Marx Flame, grew them out, and noticed they were starting to see some striping. So they grew it out, and it continued, and eventually offered this plant up online on some of the Facebook pages, and was able to make an offer on it and get it. But it's one of the largest of its kind. I know that there's some popping up because of all the TC production of them. This one does show a bright yellow color, and it's on all leaves. So to my knowledge, it's one of the biggest that's been discovered so far. There's probably more coming. There may be some that are more mint, but this is a first of its kind as far as in the US, a known plant. There may be someone who has one somewhere tucked away, but this was one of the first ones publicly sold. I know there's some that have been offered that might show patches of variegation on some of the leaves, but as far as having bright color, at least in some part of every leaf, this one is this is one of the bigger ones, and we have been able to propagate it. So hopefully that color passes on to the next four or so cuttings.
That's exciting. Thank you.
This one comes from China.
Okay. Do you have a name
It's
for
a small form Warsigiana type. We have been calling it the green ghost.
Okay.
It comes out like some philodendron have a ghost pattern with a bright leaf, then fades to a darker green. This is one of them.
Awesome.
Every year, right before the Arrowhead show, it's the Rare Variegated Plant Show, and we always feature a Variegated Monstera collection. So the collection started to grow, it's starting to get big. We've had this a couple of times. So this year we were up to like 30 or 40 different varieties, and it just felt like we really couldn't do a display and not include this. So, I had the chance to get this in March when it first was at the Bangkok show, and I just hesitated because I didn't know enough about it. And, but it is some that eventually ended up getting right before this past show we had last week.
That's cool. How does it grow for you? Can you describe it to us?
Well, it's a plant that just makes you just scratch your head in a lot of ways because it grows very strong.
Really?
It came in with 3 leaves less than 21 days ago. And since then, being an import and having a new leaf after 3 weeks, that just kind of shows you
adorable.
Kind of the strength.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of people are finding in person, is when they see it in person, they realize it's a strong plant. It's not a white plant that looks like it's about to just keel over and just fall on the floor. It's got strength in it. You can feel it in the stems and in the petioles, and it's got structure to it. We're noticing that wavy leaf edge too, which is kind of unique from Monstera. So it makes you think, what in the world is this plant? It's just a mind scratch, head scratcher.
But it's a joy to have, obviously.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, we had it at the show. It was, obviously everyone wanted a photograph of it. And you know, it will be great to grow them out. I've seen them growing out very large. It's not a plant that disappoints you over time from what I'm seeing. It doesn't get progressively green.
Yeah.
It actually gets progressively more dramatic. So it's gonna be fun to grow out. It'll be fun to watch also the production. What happens? Does TC eventually take place? Does cuttings the only way that these are traded? At what point does the TC or the attempts at TC start hitting the market? So everyone's kind of got their eye on this one because it's a one of a kind. It's kind of a new development for not only Monsteras, but the whole plant world, because most of us who, you know, go to these shows, you think you've seen most everything, and then, you know, the door opens at a Thai show and 3 plants come in and you just don't have the answer. What, you know, what is this? You know, something like that.
Thank you so much for your time, and it's such valuable information. And of course, when this video comes out, it'll be 5 to 6 months from when we filmed it. So some of these Monsteras may actually be available. So do hound Michael at his Instagram. It's going to be down below. And Michael, thank you so much again for sharing.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right.